The accent or the, like, affect or the word choice?
I guess it's more the affect, right?
Yeah. Like, it's just real...
Oh, I can totally hear.
Yep.
Okay.
Wait, which side goes where? It doesn't have a... Oh, there.
I don't think it matters.
Whoa.
Yes!
Yeah!
I know! First guess.
It's like we're all in another world together.
We're in a bubble together.
Yeah.
Welcome
To another episode
of
As
Woo As
You
What?
Yeah!
First guess
With
Celine
Jeremiah
and
Kyle.
Woo!
I didn't
First
know
guest.
I got to be a part of that.
yeah, you're like part of the
cool.
team. We're in this.
We're in this together.
So
Welcome back. This is episode 12 of As Woo As You Want. And we're super excited because we have our first guest here.
Yes, it's been a journey. We're so psyched you're here. And to talk about all the things.
I'm very honored to be the first.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Well,
It's pretty exciting.
we're psyched. So, our first guest, Kyle, is a
Yeah.
Feng Shui, intuitive,
Consultant.
architect too, right?
I'm not technically an architect. I worked in architecture for a while.
Okay. But you have that background.
But I never took the exams, went through the formal process.
Okay. Cool.
I'm a dropout.
An architecture dropout.
An architecture dropout.
Architecture school's hard.
Well, I did the school.
Oh. You just didn't take the test.
Well, you take the test years after you graduate. You work for a while, and then there's like 9 tests that you take over the course of a few years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Barf.
Yeah.
I don't want to take
I feel like I'm less of a dropout and more of like I transformed into something else.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
definitely took it with me.
Yeah. And how long have you been practicing?
Feng Shui.
Yeah, what you do now.
Different iterations for probably like 7 years.
Okay, cool. So I'll just give some background. So I met Kyle at our friend Dylan's moon celebration. I don't know if you have a better name for that, but basically our friend Dylan...
It was definitely a celebration of the moon.
Yeah. Our friend Dylan every year reads this short story about the moon, and he knows it by heart.
What?
And he invited...
He does that every year?
I think he does it every year.
That's why he was so good at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lots of practice.
And it was in Long Island at the North Fork. And never met Kyle before, but we got into a conversation and just talking about things. And you were saying how you were into Feng Shui, or you do Feng Shui. And
I'm into it too.
you're into it too. Well, hopefully.
I'm into it and I do it.
You do it. And I don't know, I just love this story about, well, maybe even before that, if people don't know, because I don't know much about Feng Shui. So this episode is about Feng Shui.
Newsflash.
Kyle is an expert in Feng Shui.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about Feng Shui.
Yeah, this is what we're going to do.
So, for people who don't know, like, I really don't know much about Feng Shui. Is there, like, a nice kind of, like...
Snippet for you?
Yeah.
I really feel like it comes down to how do you relate to your environment? Like, how do you create this relationship with your environment? And, I mean, there's... That would be, like, my shortest snippet. And then to veer off of that, it's this understanding that your home... It's like your second skin. So in a sense, sometimes I really describe it as it's similar to acupuncture.
Okay.
In that, you're needling your body and you're moving energy around. Well, your home is your second skin, so when you move stuff around in your home, it starts to change the energy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Or shift things. And then because your external space mirrors your internal space, when you change things outside of you, you start to change your inner world. Just like when you needle different points, like that definitely changes your psychology, psycho-spiritual.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like opposite, but the same. It's changing your outer world to do your inner world, and then I do your inner world to change your outer world.
I'd say you still do outer world, too. I'd say skin is external.
Okay, yeah. Never thought of it like that.
That's a cool metaphor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, you can do it in the inverse. Like, you can start to work with Feng Shui by dropping into what's going on in your life, understanding what you want to change, and then looking at your home and seeing how you can support that change.
Right, like being like, this is so cluttered, this area, or there's not enough light here, and kind of working. Yeah,
or, the reverse would be, like, this is a very simple one, like, I want to bring in new clients in
Perfect.
That sounds good.
Always. Yeah, we're like, go on.
We're listening.
Tell us more.
Please.
Yeah, so then you can use different, like, Feng Shui systems of analysis, different maps to work with how that would manifest in your home. Mm-hmm. So, like, for the Bagua, you would go to the helpful people area of your home. I know you're a little bit familiar with the Bagua.
Explain that a bit, just to everybody who doesn't know.
Okay. So, a little bit on the history of the Bagua, because I feel like that's what everybody knows as Feng Shui here in America.
Yep.
Is that this guy named Lin Yun came to America, and he brought his, like, iteration of Feng Shui for Americans, because we're very psychological. So he interpreted a lot of like old Feng Shui systems to match more Western psychology, and to make it more like DIY, to make it something that sort of everyone could do on their own, and like copy the Bagua, place it over their floor plan. It was just easy interpretation. Yeah.
Did it work out? I did. I literally did that.
Well, so I like it in that it allows everyone to kind of easily jump in a little bit to Feng Shui, but then the problem is that people think that that's the entire landscape of Feng Shui.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, what I did was like I found something on the internet, and then you basically divide, it's like a giant wheel, and then you divide it into like sections, and then each section is like wealth, happiness, health, etc. And then you do that with like the directions. I don't know, it was like this long thing I did. I was super psyched about it. I like made like, I colored everything red and yellow and da-da-da, and then I would move stuff around. And I mean, it did help in one section, because interestingly enough, in my apartment where I practice acupuncture, from this Bagua chart is actually my financial sector. And so I put like a financial abundance altar in there, and it kind of worked, but you know, I don't know. I don't know what I was doing.
Okay, so the Bagua it can be interpreted as a wheel, but a lot of times it's interpreted as a 9-square grid.
Already
and
knowing more.
Each section of the grid is like a different part of your inner world. Mm-hmm. And the idea is that the whole grid makes up your entire like inner psychology. Yeah. So there's like an area for family. Well, I could go through them all.
Yeah.
Well, I don't like to go too much into the Bagua because I don't always use that.
Oh, right. So tell us, what do you use to do it? A bunch of different stuff?
Different stuff depending on... I mean, my first question is always with the client, what's going on? Like, why have you contacted me for this consultation? Because, what's the saying? Don't fix what ain't broke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's real. So you don't want to go meddling with people's shit if they're like, no, I'm good right now.
Interesting.
Because everyone goes through, even though you might see something that you're like, oh, this is a bit off, that person might not be working on that at that point in their life. Like, they may start working on that 6 months down the road.
I love that.
And I'm actually really curious how you deal with that with acupuncture, because
If they're not willing, if they're not knowing something needs to change or like address it, you mean?
yeah, like, would you even...
I don't do anything
Right.
because it's not my place.
It's not your place, and in a very real way, it's just not helpful.
Well, yeah, you're not gonna. It's like anything. If you're gonna tell someone an advice that they're not willing to hear, it's just gonna go. What is it
In one ear and out the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, or just like not ready to... I don't even know. Not ready to work on it kind of makes it sound like the clients are like kindergartners or something. You know? And I don't like to talk about it like that. I more like to talk about it of like, we can't do all of our self-work all at one time. It's a process, a lifetime of work. So it's always really exciting. I mean, it's hard when a client comes and they're like, I don't know, I just heard about Feng Shui and I just want a consultation. And you're like, oh, okay, but what's going on in your life?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, I don't know, I just wanted to try it.
Can you?
That's really tough.
Wow.
Does it ever happen when you walk into a space that you can kind of sense what's going on through like where everything is?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Her face was amazing.
I wish we...
I'm like sensory overload every time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's my gift and my curse.
Does those hoarder shows, like, make you go insane?
Oh, I can't watch those shows.
Yeah. Wait, what about Marie Kondo?
Can't watch that show.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
I have a weird thing with Marie Kondo. I think she's a sweet lady, but no, and
Just like how you were like, she's a sweet lady.
she is a sweet lady, and I think she brings a lot. But I think that the way that we've interpreted that in America is this like OCD decluttering, this obsession with, it's like the cleansing. Remember all the juice cleansing, which I think is still a thing?
Yeah.
It's like we have to get clean.
Yeah.
And
I love it.
that feels really aggressive to me.
I mean, you can't have more than like 7 books according to that. And I was like, well, it's not going to work for me.
Yeah. A little too rule-centric.
Yeah.
For sure.
Rules.
I mean, but the thing that, like, really fascinates me, and this ties into a lot of stuff we've been talking about in some of the earlier podcasts, but, like, this idea of, like, as above, so below. And I really loved that metaphor of, like, your space being your second skin. I don't know is there anything in Feng Shui about, this is, like, trying to see if, like, Seth ties in some way.
Okay, yeah.
But do you know Seth? Have you heard of Seth? Okay, so you don't know. Because he's like a one-word thing. But no.
At the moon party?
No.
Yeah.
He's,
He wasn't at the moon party.
no.
Maybe
he's not
he
really,
was.
He could have been, actually. He might be with us here now. Seth is a entity that was channeled by Jane Roberts in the 70s.
Okay.
And I don't even, whatever.
He's fine.
He's fine, right? That's fine. He won't be mad. But we talk a lot about the Seth material. There's like 12 books, all based on different stuff, like the nature of reality, dreams, health, and so you were going to bring it up.
So he makes this really interesting kind of parallel between the waking life and the dream life, and so how the dream life, as symbolic as the dream life is, your waking life is. So, like, literally the surroundings that you have around yourself reflect what's going on the inside.
The exact same principle of Feng Shui.
Wow.
Yeah. Which is, that's like the whole concept of, I love Michael Talbot's book, The Holographic Universe. Oh, you guys were talking about it recently, right?
Did we talk about it?
Maybe not.
I might have.
Oh, I think you did.
You did Destiny of Souls. That's the one that
Journey
I
of
was like,
Souls.
Oh, and he did Destiny of Souls as well. There's a second one.
Right. Okay, yeah.
They're both really good.
Michael Newton, right? Isn't that his name?
Talbot.
No,
Wait.
Michael Talbot is holographic universe. But what I
Yeah.
was saying is, what you're saying is this concept of that, like, our reality is a hologram.
Got you. I see. Right.
And so I feel like that's reflected in a lot of different cultures and a lot of different philosophies.
Yeah. So it's funny too, because like, you know how everyone now is talking about holograms or simulations, and they're using like computer terminology. It's like it's all the same thing, but now like in order for our culture to understand it, it's like
Yes.
we got to talk about like processors and
Right.
like, you know, like
The internet.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
It's so interesting. So do you mind telling a little bit of your story about like how you got to Feng Shui? Just because it's
is
just so
pretty-
great.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah, I don't even know it.
So, where do I begin? So I started off in high school. I'm going to go back to high school.
Yeah,
Yeah,
please.
go
we
for it.
go
Yeah.
there.
In high school, they make you decide if you want to go into architecture. They make you decide before you apply to college. Like, you have to
Okay.
apply to the School of Architecture at wherever you go. So in high school, I was like, I like art. I like math. Like, why not just like combine them? Like geometry. Why not just combine them, and that would be architecture, right?
Yeah.
That was the reason why I chose architecture, like, originally. And now looking back, it was like very intuitively where I was supposed to go. But that's kind of a crazy, that was the closest I could get to what I would become, like, I'm from Alabama. So I'd never heard of Feng Shui. And so architecture felt like the right move at that time.
Yeah.
Went to architecture school. Went to many architecture schools, actually. That's a whole nother story. And then ended up working in architecture for a little while. And
Oh, so you finished school?
I did.
Oh, okay. But you just
Yeah.
didn't take all 9 tests.
Right. So the tests are not college tests. They're like to be a certified architect where you can sign off on drawings.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I did the school. I worked in firms, like, I think my title was junior architect or something. And sitting at a computer, like, drafting, designing, creating 3D whatevers, and not, like, getting migraines all the time, and understanding or starting to realize that, like, we're designing for humans while we're, like, miserably sitting at a desk. Like, that was confusing to me.
Oh, whoa, yeah.
And I was like, no one in this firm has any understanding of, like, how a body moves through space, was my sentiment. Or what I kind of gathered through this experience of, I worked at 2 different architecture firms, and what I gathered from that experience, and I was like, this doesn't feel right to me. Like, and I was very passionate about creating spaces for people. Like, that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I was, like, committed to that. But it's pretty quickly revealed itself to, like, not be the path to do that in a way that, like, nurtured my more, like, psycho-spiritual understanding of the world, which was kind of limited at the time, or my vocabulary about it was pretty limited.
Yeah.
So I left architecture and ended up starting to sort of piece together this education for myself to understand how humans inhabit space. And I really did that through, like, working a bunch of different types of jobs. Like, I pretty immediately started teaching yoga.
Okay.
Because I was like, movement in space, that makes sense. Understanding bodies, that makes sense. And then worked for an artist, like, making sculpture, and I was really interested in the art world of, like, why people buy art for their homes, and what's that all about, and what kind of objects do people collect for their homes. And worked for an art gallery doing research for their pieces, and, like, writing for them. I'm blanking on my other random jobs that I did. Worked in real estate for a very brief stint, running around
Space.
showing people apartments, which was really enlightening of how panicked people are when they move.
Oh my god! Well, it's so
like
stressful.
Complete and utter terror.
Particularly, were you doing this in New York?
Yes.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
it's the worst.
It's terrifying.
I mean, San Francisco and then New York.
You have
right?
like 2 weeks to find someplace.
Yeah.
Oh, it's awful.
Yeah, it's so stressful.
Oh my god! I can't believe we're doing that. That's
But it was
crazy.
really interesting, definitely.
Yeah.
And so I started studying more and piecing together my little curriculum, and it was like a very intuitive journey. And all the while I had an acupuncturist that was one of my mentors that I'd been seeing since I was like 19.
I just pointed at Celine.
My face, I open my mouth
Yeah.
a lot. Hello.
Yeah, so he does acupuncture, spiritual counseling, like shamanism. And so one day, after I felt like I'd like sort of pulled some things together in my brain, I was like pretty proud of myself for accumulating my own like theories and understandings of space, and I like make an appointment with him and excitedly like burst through the doors, like tell him all about like my new understandings of architecture and how it's a combination of like psychology and movement and people and space and objects and he listened really patiently and let me just ramble and ramble and ramble, and then just very calmly was like, yeah, that's already a thing.
Oh.
It's like a 5,000-year-old philosophy called Feng Shui. Go buy a book.
That's the best.
I was like, oh. Right, so I was very humbled by that, but it was amazing after I got over my initial ego like tantrum. It was amazing because that opened the doors to people to have conversations with it, like about it.
Oh, wow.
And not even, there actually aren't that many people to have conversations about it with.
That's why you're on the podcast with us.
Wait, what do you mean people to have conversations about it with?
About Feng Shui.
Oh, to talk about it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And to like sort of bounce ideas off of and like these like theories that I had come up with.
Okay.
And so that opened the door for, I mean, I started buying and reading books like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, holy shit, like I intuited this and this and this. I mean, it's just collective information that you're just like picking up out of the ether.
Yeah.
And then I found my first teacher here in New York, studied with him, worked for a little while, later on went and studied with someone in London. He was from Hong Kong, and they taught me different like schools of Feng Shui. Like he was much more classical Feng Shui, and then the guy in New York was more Lin Yun BTB school, which is the Bagua.
So that's the Bagua is, say that again?
BTB school.
Okay. And then the London guy is
He
what?
did more, overall they call it classical Feng Shui. So it was more like compass school. You use the compass orientation to
Right, you
get
mentioned
more
this.
information about, or to
space.
map out your home. Yeah.
Okay.
And the Bagua doesn't use the compass, which is great for New York, because do you know how hard it is to use a compass in New York with all the metal everywhere? It's nearly impossible. You have to do Google Earth
Oh.
to get, or I think it's called Set Compass now.
And
it
it
used to
just
be
does it,
Google
yeah.
Earth or something.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you studied with the two of them and you worked on different projects with both of them? Or you just kind
I
of
really
shadowed
didn't work
them?
on projects with them. I studied with them, got the information, then worked
Left.
myself with
Okay.
clients. Yeah. I'm kind of a loner in that way, that like I really learned from working with clients and sort of testing out and everything that I test out on people, like I had intuited, and then my teachers had sort of backed me up with more information, and then I'm like, okay, now I'm ready to like put this out into the world because it's been like confirmed on different levels, and I've added to it, and then that's sort of like the third realm is is working with the clients. Like, okay, so does this work?
Right.
Like, am I getting feedback? Is this working for people? Yeah.
I had a technical question, but I do want to talk about how you work with clients. But before that, just in terms of the compass style, well, I have two questions.
So excited.
Sorry.
So excited.
I have two questions. One, is Feng Shui similar to, because I didn't know this, Celine does Chinese medicine, and I didn't know, in China, just like everything in a large, area, Chinese medicine, they just call it under like one umbrella, but it's really like a regional kind of thing where there's like all sorts of aspects. I don't know if it's the same with Feng Shui.
Real.
It's totally the same with Feng Shui in that like it's very much passed down through oral tradition.
Okay.
Right.
So that was what was really interesting studying with the guy who I studied with in London. He had learned from like families. Whereas my teacher here had learned from a teacher who had learned from families. So I kind of wanted to get a bit closer to the
like familial.
Yeah. And all of those familial traditions are very different, which is I think what you were describing with acupuncture.
Got you. Mm-hmm. And then my other question was, in terms of the Bagua versus classical, I think you had mentioned this when we first met, but the concept of like just kind of putting a grid on top of a space seems very like a very blunt tool versus like actually using a compass to like dictate where the space is.
Oh, interesting. No, we didn't talk about this.
No? Oh, okay. Well,
I love this. Where are you going with
Oh,
this?
I don't know. I was asking you. It seems like using a compass would be more
like personal to the
personalized
space.
and custom, but I don't know.
It is, but when you use the compass, you use it to create another map to put over the space.
Okay.
So you're not like walking around with a compass.
Okay. So explain that. So like let's say I'm a client. Mm-hmm. I could really be a client right
I know. I'm like, cool.
Can I be a client?
Just for everyone to know, like my space is going through a massive transition right now where there are people who are in the other room are moving out, so it's very apropos that we have Kyle with us today. Let's say do you have one, Celine?
No, I mean, I know what you're trying to ask her.
So you do it.
Yeah, you're trying to say, I just dropped
I'm just curious, like, what the process is.
Yeah, so, like, even if you have, like, the Bagua, like, puts categories, right? And then you fit that into the space. How do you use a compass? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, the Bagua, you overlay this grid onto the space. The compass, it depends on which compass method you're using. Like, I use the Bazai method a lot. Mm-hmm. And that's a similar pie, like, that you were talking about.
Right.
And you get the direction of the facing direction of the building or the actual, like, apartment unit or house.
Okay.
And then you use that number to create this map.
Okay.
So that you know, when you overlay it on the floor plan, you know which... It's like looking at Google Earth from above.
Yeah.
You know which direction you're looking at.
And then, so, if you are facing, like, north, or if you're facing south, like, is there a certain template that means? Or is that not following? Or am I asking something that's too complex?
That is more complex.
Look at me. Okay.
So impressive.
Thank you.
But what I would say is that the Bazai method I love because the theory or the philosophy behind it is that 50% of the directional energy that's coming into your home is auspicious.
Elaborate on that. What does that mean?
Well, let me finish and then maybe
Sorry.
You might not have that question anymore.
Okay.
50% is inauspicious. And that's the case with everyone in the Bazai method. And the idea is that you want to work with your home to orient yourself to accept the auspicious and to transmute the inauspicious. So you transmute that by using, I mean, you can do it in many ways. It could be like how you orient your bed, but it could also be using the 5 element system. So that gets into more like esoteric language of how how you work with the constructive cycle and destructive cycle of the 5-element system. And each direction has a different element that's coordinated with it.
So in Chinese medicine, that translates as a circle. And you have a generating cycle. So each element generates its other one. So like in a progress.
Oh, this is the 5-element system.
Yeah. I was just describing it for people listening.
Yeah, I don't know what
like,
the 5-element system is.
Yeah.
So it's just earth, water, fire. Oh my god.
Wind?
Wood.
No, wood. Thank you.
Metal.
Metal. Yeah.
I thought it was almost like Settlers of Catan for a second
No.
Different than like Western astrology, which has 4 and air is one of them. I think.
Yeah, air. There's
Right.
no air.
there. Okay.
Yeah. No air, but I found metal is similar to air.
Yeah. So metal is your lungs in Chinese medicine.
Oh.
So then you have, on my end, the elements relate to organs. So fire is heart, earth is your stomach and your spleen, metal is your lung and kidneys. And am I forgetting about
Water.
one?
Water.
Oh, water is your bladder. No,
Oh, water is,
bladder, kidneys, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
bladder, kidneys. I messed up one of them and I can't remember what I just said.
That's okay.
Well, it's a really beautiful system. It's so simple. And it comes from, and I think it's the same Chinese philosophy in acupuncture too. Like it starts really with trigrams. So it's breaking up the universe into yin and yang. And then it creates this language of yin and yang that you can describe the whole universe through yin and yang. It's like ones and zeros in computer binary language.
Yeah, binary. Oh, wow.
Isn't that the I
It's
Ching?
really geeky. Yeah.
The I Ching.
And then from there, you can break it down into the 5 elements. And so everything is described in a phase of the 5 elements. Is that what you would say?
We had this whole thing when I first started school, is that they make you you learn, you don't have to, but you learn every category of element, and everything has a corresponding season, a smell, a color, what are other things? A food, a taste.
Anything.
Yeah.
And it's the same in
In the
Feng
five,
Shui.
in the 5 elements.
So everything in the world falls under these 5 categories, essentially.
And then
Okay.
like bodies too, like you don't
Right.
take it there. So like people have certain constitutions, or kind of any kind of illness or pattern can be also correlated to an organ and a season and an emotion. For example, I had a client last week who was having a lot of upper respiratory stuff, like lung issues, a cough, and I asked them if anything was like going on, and they're like, actually, I'm going through a divorce and my cat died. And your lungs relate to grief and emotion. So acupuncture way of how like that whole kind of system fits into itself.
Wow.
Which is lungs are metal element. So then there's multiple different ways. Like if you sent your client to me, there's multiple different ways we would work with the metal element in their home. Or, for example, the bagua is broken up into the 9 squares. Each square is called a gua. So the gua that's correlated with the metal element, which ends up being correlated with lungs.
Yeah. So then, like, what does that typically look like for you? Or does it just depend? Like, do you use a certain, like a color or, like, a fabric? Or, like, does something correlate to that metal aspect? Or is it always just dependent?
Colors.
Colors, yeah.
Colors and textures and shapes correlate with the elements. So, like, metal is gray and white and circular.
So you would kind of like incorporate those physical elements and colors and shapes into that person's space.
Or maybe it could be possible that everything in her space is circular and she's just like drowning in grief.
Wow.
It's so
Right. I know it's hard to like describe.
per person, and it's also, and that's where you start to use your intuition, because there's so many different techniques that I know that I could use. There's different maps, there's different systems that I could use, but generally when someone comes to me and I'm looking at their home and looking at their floor plan and they're telling me what's wrong with them, I work like intuitively, very visually, so like stuff will start to come up and I'll just start to see, okay, we're going to work with this, and I start to correlate their issues with their home, which is really tying them, it's going back to how we started the podcast, it's tying them, it's helping them create a more intimate relationship with their environment, with their home, so that they start to, I mean, you can use it as a lens of self-inquiry so that you start to be more self-aware of your space, and you can use it to start to understand, like, oh, what's going on in my life? Like, I think you had mentioned the clutter, like if the clutter always shows up in one area, you can be like, what's that about?
Yeah.
Huh. I love it.
Yeah. I'm always really cluttered in my room, in my bedroom. I hate putting my clothes away, like folding them. To be honest, like, and I like come into my room and I'm like, oh God, Celine, like, just pick it up. And I'll just like make a little pile. And I know I'm doing it. And I'm like, you gotta get it together. And I'm like, maybe it's because I don't have enough stuff to like storage space. But
that's big. That's a basic organizing
maybe that's
technique.
what it, but then I also am like, what's going on inside? Am I like very emotionally like, you know, whatever's happening? But I do.
It could just be you need like another dresser. You're like trying to think so deep, and it's just like you don't have a place to put it.
Yeah, sometimes it is that
not?
surface, and then sometimes it's much deeper.
Something else going on. Yeah.
It's so interesting because we had I don't know if you listened to our bodies episode, but we also talk about this where it's like, you know, I like pulled my back at one point, and it was like, well, maybe I'm experiencing this and this, or maybe I just didn't drink enough water. You know,
right,
it really takes someone from outside to like kind of diagnose it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's why you need to hire a Feng Shui specialist like Kyle.
Yeah.
I always love playing with that idea too, because isn't it hilarious? Like, don't you laugh at yourself when you realize that you're just dehydrated?
Right.
And it's like, oh, shit, I need to be a little lighter about all of this. Like, I do feel like that's generally, like, a message to, like, lighten up. And I actually, if you really wanted to take it deep, you could probably find a deeper reason why you were dehydrated. But you don't need to.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, don't
you don't
overthink
have to.
it.
Yeah, you don't.
Well, I feel like that's kind of what happens to people maybe when you're a little bit more intuitive or into kind of like spiritual ideas, is that sometimes I think you tend to, well, at least for me, like what I was saying about my room, perfect example, like just get more storage space. But I'm like, what does this mean? I'm emotional. How's my heart chakra? You know, like,
well, I actually think that's why it's hard for you. I find that cleaning is really hard for people who...
Oh my God, thank you for saying that.
Really hard for people who it's actually an emotional, energetic process.
Yeah.
Because you go so deep in it, and you are so sensitive that as you're moving things through your house, you're shifting energy inside of you. And so
all I needed to hear about why I'm kind of messy sometimes.
It's not an excuse to stay messy.
I know.
But I would suggest setting a timer for yourself and making it more a technical exercise instead of going, drowning in it. And this is like next level intuitive, nuanced intuitive stuff. It's like you can't allow yourself to always live in that space.
Right. It's just sometimes.
Yeah, just sometimes. Or when it's necessary, or when...
Like in my room. Maybe I'll just be in my room. I would do that.
Oh, no, I just think that there's time to do that. There's times to do that, just not every day. Like, you need a clean apartment. So you don't need to do it every time.
My apartment isn't like a squalid place, but I do.
You've got like piles of clothes. It's not like you walk in and you're like, where am I?
Yeah.
But like,
there's stuff.
There's like stuff flying around a little bit.
Stuff.
It's not offensive or anything.
The problem that I have with the decluttering, I would call it like a, I can't think of the word.
OCD?
Like epidemic?
Epidemic, yes, thank you.
Sure.
Yes, is that it tends to force us to be OCD, like that's now the right thing, is to have everything in its place all the time, and it's like, then you're just a rigid freak.
Yeah. You're so right, yeah.
And the beauty actually lies in this space where you can let things move into chaos, and then you can be like, okay, chaos, I'm going to put you back in your place. Like,
that's a really nice.
That's how to really live in your home. You're not living.
Kyle's
in
just
your
blowing
home.
my mind. I'm like speechless. Everything you've been saying is fucking amazing. It's awesome.
You're not living in your home if you're not letting it fly into chaos.
Yeah.
My mom would really be laughing at me right now if she was listening, and she might be listening to this. Because I was such a messy kid. I loved chaos. Loved.
Probably
did not like to clean my
Well, I'm gonna just be presume something here, but I almost feel like that's like a child, because you're intuitively like that with space. You're so in tune to space. I think it's almost like what a child does. It's like a reverence, you know. You're just like, wee, like I'm gonna fuck everything up, and like you enjoy that. There's like joy in that.
I mean, I would clean, but I would just like pull everything out. It would be all over the place, and then I would, put it back up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's like it's an expression of you like being able to like control, or like maybe not control is the right word, but like
work with the energy.
Playing with the energy. Yeah.
And that's the cool thing, is it's such a beautiful opportunity to like work with your energy. Like even the basics of cleaning, and I'm not saying people shouldn't have people help them clean, but like when you clean your own home, you're really moving and manipulating your own energy.
Well, and I feel like you feel so good after.
It.
Like, for me, if I, like, deep clean and clean a bathroom and, like, fold everything and do the whole 9 yards, like, there's such, like, a open, fresh sensation and, like, a grounding in my space.
Because you've just internally moved that shit around, too.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, can we... This is a little too late to ask, but we can cut some of this podcast.
Yeah, we can totally cut stuff out. If there's something you want to cut, let me know.
Word. No, cuss.
Oh, yeah.
We can cuss.
Sure.
We can cuss.
Swear? Is that the...
Swear works. Cuss is great.
Cuss is so
Where did
cute.
that come from?
It's Alabama.
Yeah.
It's an Alabama
No, the
thing.
first episode, I think pretty early on, I was like, we'll be swearing on this podcast.
Swearing. Yeah. Swearing is a weird word also to me. Both of them are weird. Anyways, so you're moving shit around internally as you move it externally, and I think that's why it's like a pretty emotional, laborious process for a lot of people. If I have to approach cleaning in a more with a different mindset. Like I like turn on some nice music or a podcast, and I'm like, okay, now I'm gonna clean. And it's like, get it done.
Yeah.
And if I'm having a more kind of in my emotions or like a deeply intuitive space that day, or sort of like under the weather in that sense, and I need my space to be more clean, like I set a timer and I'm like, okay, well, I can definitely do this for 10 minutes. And I don't think, I don't engage too much in it.
Yeah.
What's your process of cleaning? I feel like you're very clean.
Well, I live with Melissa. You've met Melissa. So we have a pretty happy, breakdown or, separation of tasks. That said, we would really like to hire someone to clean our space. I mean, I'm curious about that, because I think you're right. There is something valuable about cleaning yourself. So for me, it's all about the dishes. If the sink is full and it's been over a day, I start to go crazy. I need, I just need to clean it. And as soon as I clean it, I'm happier. And I'll throw music on sometimes just to dance around while I'm cleaning.
Yeah, because that's the other thing. If you're cleaning while you're hating it, while you're pissed off cleaning, then you're kind of just spreading that throughout your home. So if you really want to lighten the mood of your home, don't clean angry. Not that you can, just then that's what you're going to get reflected back to you.
Yeah.
Right. No, for sure.
Which is sometimes important to see how angry you are.
Yeah. I was curious about, could you give us a couple of stories from your practice of someone was going through something and what you did to address the situation, and the result of that? I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, a real quick one that I recently had was someone was, I won't go into the details, but they were working on different work projects that kept falling through, so it was like finances that kept falling through, and I look at their floor plan and they had this couch like right like 2 feet, like if you walk, I don't know, 2-3 feet into the front door, you hit the couch. And it was like a very long couch, so it was blocking all of the energy that was coming into their home.
Cool.
Or it was blocking everything that was coming into their home. So I was like, oh, okay. I mean, it was super simple. Just, like, move the couch over and open up that little area so with it, anything that's coming into your home can, like, collect in that area and then disperse throughout the home.
Wow.
Otherwise, you're kind of saying, like, no. Like, you're really putting a strong hand up if you have the back of your couch against your door, essentially.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. I mean, simple, whatever, but effective, you know?
Yeah, it's really interesting how simple a lot of the solutions are. I mean, everybody wants it to be like more dramatic and a bigger change, but a lot of times it's very simple like that. Well, I mean, one that I see all the time is people that are having problems in their relationship, and your bed, and this is a very like largely talked about in Feng Shui, your bed symbolizes your relationship. And if you're not in a relationship, like, it symbolizes...
You just saying that, like, blew my mind. I'm going to put this out there. Melissa and I, we have, like, a California king-size bed.
That's amazing.
Which I think totally symbolizes our relationship, because we give each other a lot of
We
space.
need a lot of space. That's great, yeah.
Courtesy of Dylan.
Oh, that's
Because he used to work
awesome.
at Casper, so we got a discount.
That's hilarious. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, you want your bed... Well, there's a whole thing of how you want to orient your bed, but you want it to have like balance on either side of the bed. So you don't want your bed pushed up against a wall, because then it's like you and the wall.
You mean your head is pushed up against the wall? The side
the
of your
side of the
body?
bed.
One
You definitely
person.
want the head of the bed pushed up
Yeah,
against the wall.
you just
That's
mean so
also-
there's
yeah.
space around both sides of the bed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people are complaining about their, like, some issue in their relationship, or maybe not, like, really wanting one but not having one, and then you look and see that the bed is, like, pushed up against a wall, and it's like, oh, but you're not really open to having, like, a balanced situation here.
Wow.
And that's a really easy and common thing. And it doesn't even have to be, that was just one thing pushed up against the wall, but it can also be like, you have one end table with a lot of light on one side of the bed.
Mm-hmm.
Balance. What about if you put your bed and your head against a window? Meaning, like, like you're sleeping and your head is towards the window. Is that like letting too much
That's never my
out?
favorite position for the bed. It kind of depends on the person. Like, do they feel supported? Like, the headboard and, like, the energy that's coming in from the back of your head is a lot about supporting you.
Oh my God. Okay.
So yeah, if
interesting.
someone came to me and they were like, oh, I just feel, I don't sleep well, I feel so unsupported, and they sort of talk about that in some way, and then I look in their bed.
Just by the window.
Not by the window, but, like, they don't have a headboard, or their head is up against the window. And in the Bazai method, if the direction of energy that's coming towards their head is an inauspicious energy for them, then I would shift that, because you don't want unsupportive energy coming from behind.
Well,
God, I
night
need to
long.
move my bed. I need to fucking move my bed. I have a whole episode we talk about my room.
yeah.
And
So that's called form feng shui. So,
that I'm just talking about?
Yeah, or what we're talking about right now. So form feng shui is about like the flow through your home, and actually like the orientation of your bed, your desk, your couch.
Huh.
Wow. And if someone is, like, let's say someone is almost too grounded, like
Stick in the mud.
Yeah, and like they need like that kind of wind energy. I guess this is totally, I'm like presupposing this, but maybe like that putting their bed by the window could help, because it would bring some movement or
The first thing that would come to my mind is how much stuff do they have under their bed?
under their bed?
If we're looking at the bed.
Okay. Yeah.
No, I would probably look at other things for
Yeah.
probably like earth energy. Like, is their home like all earth element? Because that
Gotcha.
can be like very like stick in the mud. You're absorbing too much. They're like slightly depressed energy.
Huh. Cool.
I mean, I'm all earth.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like astrologically.
But that's why I think we work, because I'm all air.
Yeah, and I'm like, we have a structured time.
That's a great
Bring it
balance. Yeah.
Huh.
So I do want to share one exercise that I really like because
You're perfect. So you know we do like a thing at the end, or you
Oh my
you
god.
didn't know that.
Oh my god. Okay, tell us what the
Beautiful.
exercise is.
Yes.
okay. So this is a great exercise because it doesn't require that you know, like, quote unquote feng shui techniques, but it really helps you drop into your home. So I have people like sit in their home, and actually you don't have to be in your home. It can be nice to be in your home, but you don't have to be. You can do it remotely. Sit in your home, close your eyes, and start at the front door. Well, first ground, like feel your butt on the chair and your feet on the floor. Feel your body, like drop into your body. Start at the front door. Start to walk through your space. So go through your entire home and notice where you really vividly like remember and can see all the details of the space, and where you have kind of like a fuzzy memory, and where you straight up like have a blind spot. So you move through your entire home, and then after you do that, you can actually, if you are at home, it's great because you just open your eyes, immediately do it. You can walk through your home and you can kind of see like, oh shit, I totally forgot that this closet was here. Or like, oh, I didn't remember that like the bathroom is actually right next to the bed, or whatever it is, the details that you don't remember. And there's probably different gradients of remembrance. Mm-hmm. But the true blind spots that you find, and you can even do as detailed as like in your mind, open up all the cabinets. That's next level. Depending on how much you are in touch with all the corners, nooks, and crannies of your home. So where you have those true blind spots, you can either, or maybe both, like sit or move through them, maybe clean them, or sit and meditate in that space, or like light a candle and set the intention. I mean, with all candle lighting, you always need to set an intention, I feel. Set an intention that like, I want to illuminate this space like in my internal landscape, so that I can really start to see like 360, so I can have my peripheral vision and in any blind spots, and you know, let the candle do its thing, help illuminate, and then kind of do it on a semi-regular basis. But the reason why I really love the exercise is because you could, I guess the and then is that you could then work with the bagua and see what that correlates with, what that blind spots correlates with, or, I mean, there's many methods that you could work with to see, but you really don't have to know any of that to illuminate that area.
Yeah.
So that area is always going to be a blind spot within your internal landscape.
Right.
Because your external mirrors your internal. Or as above, so below.
Holy shit.
Where can people find you, Kyle?
Ask. Yeah.
Well, right here, right now.
Well, do you have an Instagram?
Yes, I have an Instagram. The letter N, Kyle, Kyle, Freeman, Freeman.
Okay.
And then my website is Natalie with an H, Kyle Freeman. So NATHALIE, KyleFreeman.com.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, we'll put that on. We do Instagram posts, and so we'll give all that info when that comes out.
Yeah, and we'll add it to our podcast description, show description thing too. Wow.
This was rad.
So fun.
This
Yeah.
is so rad.
This was like the best. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for coming
You're
and
welcome.
sharing.
Thank
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
What a time.
And stay tuned for a new episode of As Woo As You Want.
Yep.
Don't forget to maybe like us,
Yes. Do all the things.
favorite things. I realize you don't have a Facebook page, but follow us on Instagram. We want to keep the conversation going. So, like, you know, if you have questions about this conversation, when the post comes out on Instagram, like, post it, and we'll see if Kyle will grace us with her presence.
Yes.
And thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.